Hi, my name is Jenny Lauren Dowden for Conduit News. Joining us in the studio today is Republican primary candidate for Washington County Judge, Tim Shepard. Tim, thanks for joining us today.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, this is a really big race for people who live here in Northwest Arkansas. Early voting and the primary will be here so soon. But before we talk about that, for our viewers who are unfamiliar with you, tell us a little bit about yourself, your experience. I know that you grew up here in Northwest Arkansas.
Yes, so my family's been in Washington County for 4 generations. I've never lived anywhere else, just Washington County. I'm currently a captain at the Fayetteville Police Department over administration, which is our internal affairs, budgeting, training and recruiting, policy and accreditation. So not, uniform police work. It's all administrative in the second largest city in Arkansas.
So I'm sure you could tell people like this experience has really set me in a unique position to take on as county judge.
Absolutely. As you can imagine, working for the city of Fayetteville, especially as a police officer, there's a lot of conflict resolution, whether it's beginning through the ranks of just people disagreeing with you physically, at protests, and it's just a constant part of that career field. And I think that's kind of what sets me apart for this role specifically. Is you look at Washington County and just the role, there's a ton of relationship management, conflict resolution, try and get people to work together. And I think I have a really unique skill set in that sense of being a diplomat and be able to manage even when, there's going to be decisions made that people aren't going to agree with. And that just comes with the territory, and being able to handle that without making it personal or damaging that relationship so that future issues can get resolved, I think is very important. I think we're seeing how that's not working currently.
Yeah. So, and you've had that probably just firsthand experience to see that, I'm sure, while working for the city. Is that why you decided to jump in this race?
Yeah, there obviously a decision like this, there's a lot of things that go into that. I never saw myself a year ago at this time. I never would have seen myself here. I had no interest in politics itself, but I love Washington County, and I see a lot of issues, a lot of internal strife. And I think everything starts at the top, and I've seen good leadership in those type of positions, and I'm currently, what I see is poor leadership. And I think between myself and the people I can bring together, because it's not about just me, I think we can solve a lot of these problems actually relatively quickly.
Explain to our viewers who aren't familiar with local and county government. Whenever I've talked to people, they'll be like, wait, you don't have to actually be a judge. I'm like, no, it's a completely different position. So talk to us, what is the role of county judge?
So the county judge, the easiest way to sum it up is it's like a mayor. You have, a mayor has a city council they work with, which is the legislative body, and the county judge has the justice of the peace or the quorum court. The county judge is over IT, the road department, HR, about 15 departments there, but it's very, very similar just to a mayor. Most states call it county executive or commissioner. I think there's only 4 states that still call it county judge.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. When you look at Washington County, and you said you've been here since you were born, and you've probably also been able to see really just the growth, the expansion, how much Washington County, Fayetteville has changed. What do you see for the county in the next 5 years? How do you couple, people say economic development and growth, along with, though, we have a lot of rural area, and making sure that we protect that?
Yeah, it's going to be hard. And I think that's where the collaboration and the relationship buildings would be really important. When I look at, for instance, our infrastructure, it's very behind. And when I say behind, I'm comparing that to our neighbor to the north, Benton County. And when I look at how they do things, and it is a different county up there. I'm not trying to say that everything should be the same as how they run it, but the county up in Benton County collaborates with the cities and the state far better. They build consensus and they have long-term planning, because our infrastructure is very behind. We're also not getting as much state aid for the roads. And in order to get those projects, you have to have the plan in place 3 to 5 years before you even see those projects come forward. And so what you're dealing with now is we're spending a lot of money on our, for instance, road department, and we're seeing this chip and seal and these projects, and it doesn't even work. It doesn't last. And so you're not getting a good return on your investment. So that is one issue. And then another issue is there's a huge clash between the urban and rural areas. And with Act 314, you're starting to see some of those restrictions. And I'm all for property rights, but what you're seeing now is outside capital that can literally go right outside the city limits of a city and do a big project. So we're going to have to manage that. And I don't have all the answers to that, but I think it's going to be the public that comes together and decides what's best for the county and how do we deal with that. And once again, when you saw earlier this year, they tried to push through the Freedom and Preservation Zoning Act. You're looking at a 200-page document that they're trying to push through at a meeting, and it's impossible for the community to even digest what's going on there. So if we're going to change zoning, or which I'm not for the rezoning of the whole county, but if you're going to do something, it has to be broken down into chunks where people don't have a conspiracy about it, whether it's true or not. We're going to have to work through those problems together. And it's not up as the county judge, my vision of it, it doesn't go over the public.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we've seen recently is they think they have an idea and they're just going to push it through because they think they have the right idea. And that brings in a lot of distrust of the government.
Yeah. And you mentioned that planning ordinance. I feel like whenever they were working on that, and it was in so many different, quorum court meetings, planning board, citizens, I think a lot of them felt a little blindsided whenever that came out. But do you think that really kind of exposed what was going on in the county, or give me your opinion on that planning ordinance and really what all it entailed? Because I know that you're outspoken about it. And then too, did it just finally expose issues that were going on?
Well, I think there was elements of that were not bad and needed to be addressed. But when you go through and you have a vision of something as a leader and you think you're right, and then you think you're so right that you don't think you have to actually explain it to the citizens, that is a huge problem. It should never have been pushed through as one huge document over and over, because it's not your idea. It has to be accepted by the public. So I think there was elements that are okay. I don't agree with the rezoning. I think maybe there should be trigger events for, like I said, you're seeing this outside capital from not in the United States, where it's going to come in and they're going to go right outside the city limits. And then what you're going to see from there is the citizens in those areas are going to be paying for, the fact that they don't have the roads upgraded or the water adequate for that. So I think we're going to have to address those issues, but I think it should be really the public, what they want to see, and not what the leadership wants to see.
Whenever you are going around talking to different groups and organizations, probably you had no idea. There's a lot of, pie eating or just, all of these different events for you guys to come to. One, what do you think about all of that? Did you have any idea how busy it would be and what all would be involved? But then two, what are you hearing from the constituents in the area? What's most important to them?
I had no idea what I was getting into, but going back to what the constituents, they want to be heard, and they don't want to just be heard. They want to be a part of the process. And I feel like, I think some of their suspicions probably have gone more towards conspiracy sometimes, because I don't know that there's an overarching conspiracy, but there's definitely a messaging error. And there's definitely an issue where they think that there's other systems in play and that their input is not listened to or does not matter to the people in power.
Yeah. Several candidates that I've interviewed, that has been a point that they've said whenever they go around and talk to constituents. The constituents just simply want to be heard, that they feel like their elected leaders, federal level, down at the Capitol in Little Rock, that they just aren't listening anymore. And it's this mentality of, I know what's best for you. And I think the constituents are just so tired of that.
They definitely think a repeated theme is that they believe a lot of these elected officials are beholden to big business. And that's where the concern is. And, they think they're in the pockets of big business. And I don't know that that's true in all cases at all. But there's definitely this idea that I know better and I'm not going to listen because you don't know what's best for you as leadership.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why that's the case.
Yeah. On your yard signs, it says, Tim Shepard for Washington County Judge, and then it says restore trust. Why was that statement so important to put on your yard signs?
Well, it's multifaceted. It's not just about the current county judge, because that is a problem. There's a large portion of the county that's aware of the situation and does not trust the current leadership. But it's also about Washington County as a whole, and that goes beyond just the current leadership. I've heard from businesses, I've heard from people at the state level, the community, that there's a distrust or of not wanting to do business in Washington County because of how things are handled. They don't think it's a stable operating environment. They think that the rules change between who you are and who you know. They think they pick winners and losers in the business environment. And basically, there's that distrust for Washington County. And I think to me, that's very bothersome because as somebody who's lived here my whole life, I think this is one of the most beautiful. It has one of the best communities. There's people that actually care. You don't see people not engaged. They want to be engaged with government. They want to be engaged with their decision making. There's an entrepreneurial spirit that is unlike anything probably outside of Bend County. And our natural beauty is by far, I think this is the most beautiful county. I don't know how anybody could think another area of the state is prettier. So, it's about restoring trust, and this is what the community wants, and making sure that we're not being influenced by outside actors.
Yeah. You've mentioned Benton County now once or twice, and they do have so much going on up there. Some would say too much. But how would you, as county judge, collaborate with our neighboring counties and others across the state? What would that look like to you?
Well, I think what it means is getting our fair share of the tax dollars we put into the state. When you look at when I bring up Benton County, their partnership with cities and the county to just simply do water and road projects is dwarfing us. And that's our tax money. I mean, we send it down to Little Rock. Are we getting it back? And we desperately need certain corridors expanded, and the county government cannot do it. We don't have the engineers, the money to do it, but we're paying that money into the state. So how do we get it back for us so that we can relieve some of our issues? And that's a huge problem. But then working with Benton County, a lot of these projects that they're working they technically should be coming into Washington County, so we need to coordinate with them. But once again, you cannot do that. You don't do that next year. Those are 3 to 6 year plans that you have to have ready to go. The state doesn't just come in and give you that money because you have a great idea. You have to plan it.
Yeah. As you've been talking to constituents across Washington County, what's something that has surprised you or that maybe they had a misconception about? And when you share it with them, they're like, oh, okay, that wasn't what I thought.
Well, first off, the role of the county judge. This is a real problem that most people in the urban areas have no idea that the county judge is not a judicial role. I know we hit on that earlier, but that is a real problem. Really, the name of the role needs to be changed because they assume it's judicial, and they don't realize how many areas that role touches, even in the cities. For instance, jail contracts. There's so many operations that do go into the cities, and that county judge position is over that. And that coordination with those cities actually affects what the service level they're getting and the costs they're paying. So that is a huge problem.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I mean, I could see that, especially if they're not plugged in. You mentioned the jail, overcrowding, just all of these different programs, especially here in Washington County, that's been an issue. When you look at what has gone on over the past few years, how do you see it getting better? I know that additional space is needed, but how do you balance that?
Well, for one thing, I think the cities will have to contribute a little bit more eventually on operational costs. You need some more pretrial services to try to get people that are waiting for beds. The state needs to do a better job. They need to be able to take their prisoners. So all those things together, but then at some point with the growth we're having, we're going to have to build more jail space. I know that's not popular for all groups, but when you're adding 30 people a day to Northwest Arkansas, the numbers just don't make sense. But it has to be a holistic approach because there is a lot of issues. When we're housing a lot of state and federal prisoners that should be going down to the state, that's obviously taking up our bed space. And now we're having to pay to build potentially more space that is really to house their prisoners. So that is going to be a multifaceted approach between the city, state, and county to get that right. But the reality is they're going to have to expand beds.
Yeah. Before I let you go, I just wanted you to really contrast. We've kind of talked about it just a bit, but you are running against an incumbent. I believe in the Republican primary race, there are 3 of you. Is that correct? Okay. And so you are running to unseat an incumbent, and some would argue, as you've alluded to, that's because the job is not getting done. So help our viewers really understand and see that contrast between you and the current incumbent, Patrick Deakins, and why they should vote for you.
I think first and foremost, and it's not that I believe people that move to Washington County have any less value than people that have grown up here, but the decisions I make affect myself and my family and friends. And it's, I have a vast network here and I'm responsible for those decisions. It's not like I just moved here and they don't affect people I know. So I'm going to take more time and more care with the decisions I make and the way I approach those decisions than somebody who's not from here. And I really believe we're seeing that. Even the prior administration, these are people that are not from Washington County, and there's nothing wrong with being a transplant, but I am not a politician and I care deeply for this community. I love Washington County. I'm never going to live somewhere else. And I think that really sets me apart from a lot of people. But beyond that, my experience in law enforcement, especially going up through the ranks to administration, Fayetteville's a very political area. There's a lot of diverse thinking there. And I've had to deal with conflict for literally 20 years, physically in my face to the political arena like as a police administrator.
Yeah.
And dealing with people constantly that either don't like you or there's a lot of high pressure moments, crisis management. I view things a lot different than I believe the incumbent or any of the other candidates. And I understand that preserving relationships and working through it, not having a reaction to the first time somebody comes against you on an issue is very valuable. And I've seen how that works over time instead of the reaction in the moment. And I think that experience is far different than anybody else in this race.
Yeah. Well, early voting begins February
17th.
That's what I thought. And then election day is March 3rd. How can people get in touch with you? What do they need to know about your campaign?
Yep. So they can go to Vote Tim Shepard, and that's SHEPARD.com. We have Facebook. And we have our email, phone number on all those sites, and we love to talk to anybody.
Yeah, and your Facebook is very active. You put out great content, so I'm sure that constituents here appreciate that. Anything else that you want to add before we let you go?
No, I just hope that people really pay attention to this position because I think Washington County is at a crossroads, and we need to define for our community where we want to go with it. And so please pay attention.
All right. Thank you, Tim, for coming in. Good luck with your race.
Appreciate it.